Hello people, good to see you here. I'm Michael from Make WordPress and today I'm on a quest to find the best of WordPress, and I'll be going into a script which is very useful for installing WordPress on your own server, and it makes it a lot more easier than doing everything manually. So let's go ahead and see what it's all about. So in this video, I will be using WordOps to install WordPress. I've tried 4 different scripts that can make it much more easier to install WordPress on your own VPS. Of course, you can also do this manually by hand, but that's a lot of more work. I tried WordOps, WebInoli, SlickStack, and also Easy Engine to install WordPress. And while I didn't manage to install WordPress with WordOps and SlickStack, I got some errors on SlickStack by default, which didn't allow me to access my WordPress installation. Easy Engine had a lot of errors with Docker, and WebInoli didn't work at all while I followed the basic setup and all the documentation they said. So in this video, I'll be focusing on WordOps, which worked actually the best out of the box. Nevertheless, the other 3 are nice services which can help you to install WordPress. But for me, WordOps worked the best. If you so what are these scripts? Easy Engine is a script to use WordPress to run WordPress on containers using Docker, and you need a pretty old distribution of Ubuntu for that, 16.04 or older. SlickStack is also a script to run lightning fast WordPress on Nginx, a web server, and it allows you to run one website per server. Then we have WebInoli, which can be used to run WordPress on your own server, but it can also serve other scripts, such as plain HTML sites, PHP sites, and WordPress sites, and in that way it's more flexible. It can also support Node, React, Vue, and so forth, and that's of course a great way to manage servers. All of these stacks also have some options for backup, some auto configurations, SSL, and so forth. And WordPress is a script which is a fork from Easy Engine version 3, which allows you to set up blazingly fast and secure WordPress. All of these platforms have good documentation, except for SlickStack. I found the documentation somewhat harder to go through, and comments and steps were not so good explained, unfortunately. And for WordOps, which we are going to use, it's also good explained. So what is WordOps? It's a script to run WordPress on your website. It's easy to install. It has options for securing WordPress, adding SSLs, doing some monitoring, and basically you need to log in a server and do these 2 commands. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Alright, the first thing we need to do is generate our SSH key pair to security login to the server we're going to create. In the end, we're going to run WordPress on our own server. We're going to run the scripts on our own servers. So for that, we need an SSH key. If you already know how to do this or already have SSH keys, you can just skip this step. Otherwise, you can follow me. If you're using a Mac or Linux, you can just use the terminals of these OSs. If you have Windows, you can use Windows PowerShell. Just go to the Windows icon and search for PowerShell and right click and run as administrator. Make sure to run as administrator, otherwise you won't have the right permissions to generate your key. And furthermore, you need to have OpenSSH installed in Windows, and this can be found in your settings. I'll be showing it in a moment under apps and features. So this screen, and then you go to optional features and then search for OpenSSH and make sure this is installed, at least the client. So If you have installed that, you're ready to generate your own SSH key pairs, and we'll be generating ED25519 key pairs because they used to be somewhat more safer version. Of course, this is always debated, but nevertheless, we're going to use it. And well, you can do it by entering the following command in your terminal, and then specify the type, which is ED25519, and you can add a comment. And oh well, we can specify a file to save this, and then use a password to protect this key. In this case, I won't be protecting it. And there we are. We now generated our key pair and we're ready to add it to our cloud server. So now we're ready to spin up a cloud server. I'll be using Upcloud. If you're familiar with cloud servers, you can have any provider of your preference. I really like Upcloud. They are fast. They have servers in many locations over the world, and they're also priced reasonably well, similar to their competitors, starting with simple plans, bit of memory, CPU for $5 a month. Worldwide in any of their data centers. So I really like them, and there's also a link below this video if you want to sign up for them. Otherwise, log in at your preferred provider. I'll be logging in at Upcloud. All right, here we go. I'm logged in, and the first thing we need to do is add our freshly generated SSH key to our provider, so we can add it when spinning up a new server. And it's pretty easy to do. Go to your account, and then to account, and then to the tab SSH keys, and click on add new. And in here, you need to paste the public value of your SSH key. And for Windows, this can be found under your current user or in the location you generated your file. But mostly this will be under your user on the C disk user, then your username, and then there's this folder .ssh, which usually contains your SSH keys. So open up the file that ends with .pub and paste the value in here and click on save. And there we are. We now have added this new SSH key, and we are going to use that to log in to our service. So let's spin up a new server in Upcloud. I'll be using Frankfurt. I'll just be going for the smallest server, and I'll be choosing Ubuntu, which is the version that is supported by most of the WordPress scripts we're going to evaluate. And you can use a one-time password for login, but it's a better practice to use SSH keys, and that's why we have been generating them. Just click new. So what I can do during deployment is to add this SSH key to a server, and we're going to use that to log in. At last, you can choose a host name and a server name for your newly to spin up server, and it doesn't really matter what it is. And because we are going to use the WordOps script, we're just calling it WordOps, and then we can click on deploy, and the server will be deployed. All right, our server has been deployed. You can see the IP address and some other details, and now it's time to log in to the server. I'll be just logging in at this new server to install WordOps. So there we are. We are installed in our server, and installing WordOps is actually pretty easy. It's again by using some commands, and let's enter these, and there we will now get all the required scripts for WordOps. And this will take some time, obviously, so I'll be back. All right, the basic scripts for WordOps are installed. And how do we install WordPress on WordOps? So the first step is to make sure your domain already points to the server IP. You need to go to your domain settings and then specify as an A record the domain you want to connect. So I'm using Cloudflare to handle all my domains, and Cloudflare is pretty well known. You may have heard of it. In Cloudflare, you can go to your domain settings, and then to DNS, and then make sure you connect your server IP to the correct address. In this case, I'm using a subdomain. That's why I'm using WO in here as a value, and then I've entered the IP address for this value, and proxy should be off if you're using Cloudflare. If you want to use the main domain, you need to change the values for your, obviously, for your main domain. In this case, make it WordPress.com as well. After you're done, you can just click save, and it will be connected. Then, obviously, you need to set up WordPress. Otherwise, it will connect to something that doesn't exist yet. Nevertheless, creating a WordPress website in WordOps is pretty easy. It works by using the WO command, and then using site, and then create, and then using the URL you're going to use, and then specifying some options. And we'll be using WordPress with the fast CGI cache from Nginx, which allows it to run somewhat faster. We can also specify our PHP version, and also secure it with Let's Encrypt by specifying the LE flag behind it, which will set up the Let's Encrypt to set up Let's Encrypt for this installation. But again, I cannot stress it enough. For this able to be work, you already need to point this domain to your server IP. And so at last, let's hit enter and see what happens. The installation is in full progress now. Exciting. All right, so that process went pretty fast, and now we should be running WordPress on the given site. As you can see, there's also a user made and a password. So let's visit this URL in there and see if it works. Whoa, and there we are. We just installed our fresh website with WordOps. And this is a brand new WordPress installation, and we can also log in with the provided password in here. And there we are. It's that easy to use WordOps. And because we're using the Nginx caching options from WordOps, the Nginx helper plugin is already installed. And as you can see, this is fresh installation, but it feels really fast. So the neat thing of WordOps is that we can create as many sites as we want on one server. So we could use the same command to create another site by just hitting this, and then it will install another site. It's that easy actually. And so here we are. We have a beautiful website using WordOps, and I think this is was one of the most straightforward processes of installing WordPress on your own server. Alrighty, I also spun up another server on which I did some testing, and I installed a package to do some load testing with it. And this package does actually test how many requests a website can handle per second. And Well, I can just enter this command, which says that it will enter 10,000 requests with 100 connections. And if you just execute the request, you can see it's pretty quickly done. And for the WordOps script, and a default WordPress installation, we have a really good score of more than 2,000 requests per second, finished in under 5 seconds, and it means that what WordOps is setting up for you is already pretty optimized and having a good performance. So how will this turn out when we turn caching off? Well, let's do a similar command, but then we'll do and just not so much request, because usually requests sent without caching take a lot more time, and you must make sure that no caching is used, and we can just add it by adding a random query string, which is here denoted by the question mark and then no cache. It could also be another value, it doesn't have to be no cache. All right, and we're done now. We finished in 44 seconds, which amounts to around 11 requests per second. And while this is an okay score, it can be better, but still it is not a bad score for such a small service. So in performance, in terms of performance, WordOps is also, I think, a great script. So I hope you managed to install WordPress by yourself and this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and see you next time.